The Lisbon Summit meeting between NATO countries and Russia and their agreement to jointly field an anti-ballistic missile system was remarkable and indeed a breakthrough for both sides. But what exactly did Russia agree to do, and why did it agree to do it? Does Russia's threat perception synchronize with America's? Does Russia really believe the missile shield is necessary or even practical? Or is Russia singing with the chorus just to keep the music going? These were some of the questions that I posed to Dmitry Rogozin, the Russian ambassador to NATO, a few days after the Lisbon Summit. The ambassador was kind enough to put aside enough time for us to explore these sensitive areas in some detail, and his remarks provide more perspective on the contours of what happened in Lisbon than has been evident from media reports. Note, for instance, the importance the ambassador ascribes to Russia's feeling that for the first time in Lisbon, Russia felt it was sitting around the table with the 28 NATO countries without a predetermined agenda, a format that gives Russia hope that it might become a real partner with NATO without becoming a member. Note also the ambassador's statement that if one wants to strengthen a relationship, one has to pay attention to the phobias of one's partner. That is, America's phobia about rogue missiles. As you listen to these highlights of our conversation, please keep in mind that the voice you hear is not the ambassador's, but that of his interpreter. Now, speaking from his offices in Brussels, here's Ambassador Rogozin. Mr. Ambassador, give us your thoughts about the summit, especially the NATO-Russia Council.
Я думаю, что наиболее важным итогом является то, что кардинально изменилась риторика в отношениях между.
First of all, the outcome, and this is something that cardinally changed, it's the rhetoric between NATO and Russia in their relations. Russia, at the already finalizing stages of the summit, saw itself not as a participant of its dialogue with the monolith of NATO, but suddenly found itself in a situation of 29 nations speaking at the round table within the NATO-Russia Council.
So that is quite a positive signal to Russia, isn't it?
Это достаточно позитивный сигнал. Half a change. The rhetoric has changed, but it's not everything that we should do. It's just half a process. We need to materialize our relations and to bring our relations to a new level of quality. We need to improve practical cooperation. And let me give you an example which might intrigue you. Russia was placed before a dilemma of how to react to the modernized plans of the White House about their missile defense project. We could have acted just as before, denying any plans and any elements of the American missile defense in Europe and preventing the U.S. of consolidating its European allies around this project. And here I believe that without Russia's consent, the idea of the European missile defense might have had many fewer chances. We took a risk in Lisbon. We were ready to analyze the possibilities, the modalities of our cooperation in this very sensitive sphere of our cooperation. And it is a real test for our relations, which we need to pass through together. And it's a test for our U.S. colleagues as well. Let us assume that we agree with our U.S. colleagues that there is indeed a threat of a real missile attack emanating from the south. And it's not just an eventual challenge for us, but it's a real risk. Then we should do our utmost and everything for the practical cooperation in this area. What did Russia say as represented by President Medvedev? She said, yes, but. And this but consists in a most constructive approach that Russia suggested, which is very difficult actually to deny. It means that Russia and NATO, just as two chevaliers, back to back, would be covering each other's backs and defending themselves against the possible attacks. Here we're talking about the so-called sectoral approach to the missile defense.
Right.
What does it consist in? First of all the instruments of the missile defense would be directed outside the Euro-Atlantic region. And secondly, every participating member would have its sector of responsibility. And what we came up with was a formula saying the enemy of my partner is my enemy. And any missiles that are flying over our zone of responsibility would be intercepted by us, even if they were not destined against us. And I believe it is up to our U.S. friends to support us on this as fast as possible so that we could then proceed to practical steps of the implementation of this project. And for Washington, it's a chance to consolidate its European allies for the common cause and to acquire a very influential friend in the face of Russia.
From what I hear the ambassador saying, the next task that should be followed is for NATO to focus on this sectorial defense.
I believe it just proves that Russia is in the mainstream of the Euro-Atlantic thinking. Russia is basically stretching out its hand to NATO in the way partners and even more like allies do. But for that we need guarantees. It's only through deep integration that we will have guarantees that the missile defense elements will not be deployed in the northern part of the Eastern Europe, that they are not directed at Russia. And as Lisbon Summit proved, we are no longer considered as a threat, and we want to already fall asleep and to know that in the West we're not up for some tricky enemy that uses Iran as a pretext for deploying its defense technologies against somebody else, but we have a real partner, a real ally on our western borders.
If the ambassador could lay out the 3 steps we need to execute this plan, what would he say?
We need to build security and anti-ballistic missile defense perimeter. Our experts should get down to work, and what we suggest is, for the moment, for NATO to finalize the general contours, the general plans of this cooperative missile defense. So we should not speed up our decisions, and I think the work should be conducted within the framework of the NATO-Russia Council.
I want to ask the ambassador about the price of the missile defense. The ticket that has been printed in our newspapers is about $240 million over 10 years. And I wonder how one can create a missile defense shield for this little money.
Well, we're hearing the same from the Secretary General of NATO, only that he mentioned even less of a figure of $200 million for 10 years. And he then made a precision that it just would cost half a tank for each participant in the system. My opinion is that this little money is only worth, making a film, a movie about the missile defense, not really creating it. It's of course, and we've warned our partners about that long ago, that could lead potentially to a very costly defense arms race. And we're also getting an impression that for the U.S., it's not a matter of a military and technical issue, or not even the military political issue. It's all about the new ideology. It's like the sacred text, the new Bible, this project of missile defense. And to discuss and try to influence that, we found very difficult indeed. And actually, for our European allies, and they quite justly identify this project of the European missile defense. It's not a really European missile defense. It's a U.S. system that is being deployed on the European soil for the money of the American taxpayers, all under the aegis of NATO, but without financial contribution on the part of Europe. So there's a great deal of defense-like nature on the part of Europe here, dependency-like character. And the Europeans would get the impression they do not believe in the missile threat in its existence, but they just don't want to spoil relations with Uncle Sam.
And so does the ambassador then think that the American taxpayer will also then support Russia's part of it? Because it sounds like this is an integrated system, is it not?
For the moment, we're not speaking about the common system. We're speaking about the partnership of two independent systems. As for us, Russians, we always pay for our bills. We never eat at the expense of others.
Does Russia have such a system that it could protect its own airspace against incoming missiles?
What Russia has is strategic missile defense. It protects the capital of Russia, and it was created during the Soviet times. It's still on alert, it's still efficient, yet it's a very harsh system, as its essence is in intercepting and attacking the missiles in space with a nuclear explosion in space. It's a quite a harsh one, but it's a very efficient one. It's aimed at protecting the administrative center of Russia against the massive attack on it. But as for missile interception of small range and medium range missiles, we have those systems. It's missiles of class S-300, S-400, which are quasi-analogous to American Patriot systems.
It seems as though the ambassador is rather skeptical that a system can really be developed at the price that is being floated, the 200 million, but that it is well worth Euro-Atlantic security to keep talking about it, because if nothing else, it will further reduce the tensions that exist between the West and Russia. Would that be fair?
You know, in the relations between partners, one has to show respect towards each other, and including phobia that exists. So I can say that we do not agree with the missile risk assessment with our U.S. colleagues, but we do not want to spoil our friendly relations with the U.S. because of that. For America, for Washington, this decision is something that has been decided and set in stone. There is no coming back. They are going to develop it anyway. So we want to be cooperative in this case with them, but we do not hide our skepticism.
When I last spoke with the ambassador, he looked at this missile defense more as a Maginot Line. Has he changed his mind about that?
I am indeed a skeptic of this project. I believe the threat is being demonized or at least overestimated. But still, I am a very fervent supporter of the maximum rapprochement of Russia and NATO. So we should find a decision that could allow us, on the one hand, allow such skeptics as I am to respect phobia of the partners, in which we don't even believe, because this is the sense and the essence of being partners, to respect each other's interests and phobias, what we like in our partner and what we don't like.
What other specific areas does he think are important to develop the relationship?
After the joint review of common security challenges in the 21st century for NATO and Russia was adopted there, we should cooperate on all the spheres identified in the joint review within the format of 29 partners of the NATO-Russia Council, before the prior blockage or internal discussions within the NAC. So on these directions, on these avenues of cooperation, there should be no prior reading within NATO. NATO should discuss that format of 29 with Russia. And as for Article 5 issues and other sensitive issues for the alliance that were not included in the joint review, that is up to NATO to discuss that internally in its own format.
Ukraine and Georgia, whether they should become part of NATO, should that be a NATO-Russia Council discussion?
I believe that all issues that are topical, that are relevant, should be discussed within the NATO-Russia Council, because we agreed it's an all-weather body, so there are no limits to that.
You've been listening to a conversation with Ambassador Dmitry Rogozin. On behalf of the Atlantic Council, this is Sarwar Kashmeri. Thank you for listening.